Now, I went to grab a few of my other journals where I was writing also the dreams. And so fast forward to a few months. So this one dream is, April 8th. So here's another thing about when you do pray to God, the answer isn't always immediate. It could be yes, no, or wait, not yet. So again, I began to pray for discernment in the fall. I didn't even know to specifically say like, reveal to me anyone around me who is a witch. This first one of the several that I would have featuring Miss Montana and how God would expose that Miss Montana, though we sung in the same choir section, and that even though they were very involved in ministry, do not always look at the outward appearance. So there's this verse in the Bible for me. I'll be reading this in a New International Version. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." So what God is saying here is, so Samuel was a prophet that was sent to select the newest king for Israel. And Jesse was a man who had a lot of sons. Some were very tall, attractive looking, and so he had several. David was not the tallest, but he was really brave, and David was the one that God chose. Though outwardly, compared to his brothers, David wasn't the tallest. He, outwardly speaking, didn't look like the one who God was going to pick according to human standard, but David was eventually next in line to become the king of Israel. God is saying, don't look at the outward appearance, because a lot of times these people who are in the churches but are agents of Satan, they will outwardly look like beautiful, dazzling angels. Let's read a bit about how this might be. 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 13 and 14 say the following: "For such people are false apostles, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light." And so this is to say the likes of Miss Montana and anyone else who is in church, but they're actually not there to worship Jesus. There are also times where you can find agents of Satan in the ministries. They're there leading out on a Saturday. They're there going out in the community, serving. And to me, having not discerned the real nature of Miss Montana at the time, back in the fall of 2023, I made the mistake of attaching myself closely with this individual who outwardly appeared to me very Christian, but inwardly, what I would later come to learn was that this person was actually a witch. So I have some notes that I wrote down as well. By infiltrating the ministry, agents of darkness are able to solidify trust, and by infiltrating the ministry, agents of darkness are able to solidify trust and gain the confidence of the sheep. So what I mean by this is that a lot of times when these people are wanting to gain a foothold in a particular church, they join the ministry. I know from experience, like a few years ago, I used to be part of a church board, and I got to see kind of like the behind the scenes of what goes on, or like how do churches run, and I got to see like different aspects of what it takes to run a church. One of those is ministry. It's very important to have people in ministry to serve and lead out those different areas. And Miss Montana particularly was part of several different outreaches, which made sense. Like, why, if you are an agent of darkness, why it makes sense for you to be engaged in such activity in the church, because not a lot of people who go, what I learned is like, just from attending church for a long time, is like your average churchgoer just goes to church and most likely just goes back home. Like, let's say we need another teacher, or let's say we need to do something, it's a bit, I guess there are sometimes it can be a bit frustrating. I don't know if that's exactly the word to use, when that sits vacant. And so I get that the more anyone who's willing to help, they're just greatly appreciated if you're willing to sign up and volunteer and take part and just be active in the church. Like, not a lot of people really like do. So at least like when it comes to the ratio of those who are involved, I think of the 80-20 rule, where 20% of the congregants end up doing 80% of the work. And so when it comes to that, it would make infiltrating a church very easy, because there already is a great need to have people serving in different ways. And agents of darkness are able to come in and take advantage of the fact that there is a need in the church for people to have leaders in certain positions, to be able to stand there and basically use that position as a means to perpetuate the works of darkness, basically. John chapter 10 verses 9 to 10 says the following. Jesus is speaking, and he says, "I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture." So Jesus is the shepherd and his church is the sheep. And verses 10, which is the one I wanted to highlight for this, Jesus says, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." So when he's talking here, who is the thief? He's talking about Satan. Now, when it comes to understanding what the works of Satan are, or the works of darkness, that's what I'll be referring to it here. Everything that Satan does falls under this three umbrella: kill, steal, and destroy. So I wrote here, if Satan comes as an angel of light, then it's no wonder that his agents appear in dazzling brilliance. Any agent of Satan comes to carry out the same assignment: to kill, steal, and destroy. So while you may have individuals who seemingly are very active, it's all part of their act. They have to appear outwardly Christian. I remember like during some of the choir practices after like church, and Miss Montana would get up and just, there'll be a group of us church people there, and started to say, like, oh, I feel like we should pray, something to that extent of like wanting to pray for over the group of people that were there. I was, the choir members. And so I was like, at this point, I already knew that this person was just putting up an act. They were phony, but they really do a great job of acting like they're Christian. They're really not there for Jesus at all. I'm like, how are you, a whole witch, have the audacity to stand in the sanctuary and offer to pray over us believers as though you were a true believer, but I know you're not. And so this is why in Ephesians chapter 5 verses 11, the Spirit of God inspired these words to say, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And it's just like the audacity to be in the house of the Lord, to be trying to, work iniquity. I ended up posting like several TikToks because it's like short form, it's very quick, you can just share something really quickly, but this was one of the videos. Really quick, this story time summarizes what I was experiencing from the end of October through 2024. Let's get started. When what you thought was just church folk turned out to be a witch in a church cloak. Undercover wolves passing as sheep, stealing energy stars and switching destinies. You didn't think Jesus Christ would see? Well, in my quiet time, that's what he showed me. Though they tried to present themselves holy, they were phonies, call them Oscar Tonys, giving me food laced with curses, then acting like they quote Bible verses. If you couldn't fool me, a mere human, did you think you were fooling God with what you're doing? 1 foot in, 1 foot out is the hokey pokey and not what the gospel is about. Fake hugs and fake wishes. Who would have thought that the church was so full of witches and warlocks? Who would have thought that the church of God was full of ops? Lots of them old enough to be retired, but they stay working iniquity like new hires. Shots fired? Well, don't mind me. Let God be true and every man a liar. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but are mighty to the breaking of strongholds, and are mighty through Christ, my hope. Jesus loves you is the gospel. He died and rose again to save humanity from sin. Long story short, Jesus is Lord, and his word is my sword. And that was inspired by everything that I ended up experiencing, like from the end of 2023 up into even like mid 2024. So almost like halfway through 2024. But yeah, just because someone can stand up and pray doesn't mean that they're number one doing it because they love the Lord. They're just doing it because it's going to solidify, oh, this person stood up and prayed, they must be a Christian. Boom. Like, if you're not asking God for discernment, you'll take that outward appearance as though it were authentic, but it's really not, because again, discernment is the insight that goes beyond eyesight. It's how you tell the difference between what's wrong and what's right. And so it goes beyond eyesight. I would implore, especially, anyone who goes into church or in these last days, like, it's very important to pray for discernment. And yeah, this person gets up and prays. Oh, they're very involved in ministry. They have essentially won the hearts of many at this church, which is why when I stopped attending, it was an abrupt, I wasn't explaining myself too much, because I understood, wow, this person has likely had a longer history there than I, and saying, oh, so-and-so is a witch. Like, a lot of people would find that without discernment difficult to believe, and I'm not there trying to necessarily convince people of what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, please pray for discernment so that you can understand why it is that I did what I did, who these people are, because there wasn't just Miss Montana, there were others like her, but primarily Miss Montana stuck out to me. Why it was important for me to mention the need for discernment, because I started to attach myself as though, like, wanting, like I mentioned in the beginning, wanting to see this person as a role model of something I wanted to be like. And I was just like, oh, I want to be like you. Girl, this person was a whole witch. Like, what do you mean? Like, I thought you was a legit Christian. I didn't know you was a whole witch. Like, what? I don't want to be that. None of that. And so because I had prematurely, without discerning this, stated that I wanted to be whatever this person was, without knowing they were a witch, I understood, like, oh, they're trying to initiate me in some witchcraft. I'm not about that. I'll see how fast I can share the following. Okay, I just shared with you dream number 1. Okay, let's go to dream number 2. I'll just do an excerpt of, like, I'll let you know the day, the time, and kind of like a brief rundown of what occurred in this dream, so that I can hopefully make this editing process shorter, in Jesus' name. Enough detail for you to know, like, it's very important for us to pray for discernment, okay? Chill. Oh, so let's see. This next one is Monday, April 22nd, 2024, and this one is about around 5:15 a.m. when I was writing this dream down. I saw in a dream, and it was like this. I was there, and there was a church choir going on, but like we were on a platform. We're sitting up on a platform, and below us is like a choir. I'm watching the choir, but I'm not. It looks like the men's section is basically like the men's section specifically are singing. And I see like one of Miss Montana's friends over there singing, but almost like with reluctance. And what I wrote here was, he had to be told to stand up to sing. Like, it was very interesting, the kind of insight that God showed me in this dream. But so basically, let me go back to the platform to kind of describe it in detail. I'm sitting there, and about 2 seats away is Miss Montana, and I'm like, this is very interesting. So I'm looking over here, looking at this person in the men's choir. They're very reluctant to like sing for Jesus, and I'm like, but you're in a choir, in a church choir. Why are you reluctant to do this? No, I wrote down here, another thing that God showed me was that not everyone in the church is there for the love of Christ. Besides this, I'm reading the part below the image. I sat in my chair and noticed this person sitting to my right. She kept trying to reach out over me, so I moved my hands off to the left, and as she persisted, I shouted, "Leave me alone." And I remember it's like one of those kind of shouts that kind of has like a little reverb or echo to it. To which she cowered back and acted surprised, like, "Oh, what are you talking about? We're in church." So I recalled exposing her as a witch, to which she got up seemingly again surprised at being called out. Then I saw her get up and she got up from there, and I saw, and she got up and placed her two hands on the back of someone else's head. And I was like, what? Like, I just exposed this person in this dream. Mind you, I haven't stated anything to them in person. As far as I know, wait, so this is April 22nd. Okay, so it was around this time that after I had the first dream, I basically went cold turkey in terms of I didn't contact this person. I blocked them on my contacts. I started to just like basically scrub them out of my life. And I didn't want anything of that they were participating in, because I understood like this person wasn't even legitimately who they were portraying themselves to be in the church. So that was why I just cut them off, you know. And I think looking back, like that was very clear. Like I think she knew that I knew at some point based on my actions. But in this dream, I was like exposing this person. I was saying like, I know you're a witch. And I wrote this quote besides the dream that I recorded here. And it said, and I wrote, wolves in sheep's clothing still have to act like sheep. Otherwise, the sheep at large would key in on their act and their theatrics would be over and they would be exposed. So, because who and what you see isn't always who and what they are in the spirit. These people are masters of being fake because they serve the father of lies, which makes sense. Like if you serve the father of lies, acting with deception is pretty much like they have like a PhD in deception. Like that's what I mean. Why we have to pray for discernment, because it's God himself who has to show you the true nature of these people. There is one dream that I need to share. Yeah, there's one. There is one of the several. So I have these little like flags in my, I have these little flags which has like where the dreams are. But so I shared with you the first two. I'm gonna skip forward to the fifth one. So this dream was May 28th, 2024. It was about 3:39 a.m. that I woke up to record this. So I said in this dream, so the setting in this dream was like I was in a room where there was a lot of food laid out on a table, and there were other members of this church there. Some of them had been part of the choir, and like some, you know, like, oh, you know, I thought I was just there, just interacting with them. Anywho, what I saw in this dream was I said, I close my eyes, I blink, you're here. I close my eyes, I blink, you're there. What is going on? This appeared to be a feast in this dream. And this person and her son, these are just other individuals at this church. So this person and her son were there, and there was like a table of food, like a Thanksgiving style dinner was surrounding us. I said this in a friendly tone, and I noticed someone standing afar off. I also noticed then, in front of me, there was Ueda, and she had those classic witch hands. She reached out one and touched the middle of my chest. Ephesians 5 verse 11 says, have nothing to do with the deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. I'm like, okay, have nothing to do with them. Why is this person still showing up in my dreams? Like, this is abnormal. In the history of walking with Christ, like this is something I was not used to, of having so many dreams repeatedly of a specific particular person in this nature. Later on, I would find out that astral projecting is something that these people also do. So astral projecting is basically, let's say this is your real body, like a physical body. This is your spirit. Say this person is sleeping. Their spirit and their body are pretty much one at this point. But astral projection is the act of the spirit leaving that body and traveling somewhere else and doing something else while the body is physically asleep and the spirit is just doing its thing. So what is connecting this to this when they're no longer together is called a silver cord. This person knows how to astral project. There's this book by this ex-satanic high priest, John Ramirez, that has a great explanation about what this is. So I might go ahead and look for it. In this book called Conquering Your Deliverance, it's by John Ramirez. Now, if you haven't heard John Ramirez's testimony, it's very powerful. I'm very encouraged to see how God works in the lives of other people. And John Ramirez was a former satanic high priest, and he left after he realized where true power was. You know, got radically saved, and you can find his testimony all over YouTube. And he wrote this book as a result. He writes on page 130 to define what is astral projecting. He says, Simply put, astral projecting is an out-of-body experience of high-level occult members where they perform with demonic powers. It has to do with traveling spiritually in different regions, countries, and neighborhoods. So that's basically it. With the example that I gave you, so then the spirit would travel wherever. If they wanted to cast a spell or curse someone from who's in location G, but they're in point A, astral projecting in the spirit would allow them to do that. And so part of what I started to do at night before I would go to sleep was I would read Psalms 35 and Psalms 91, as well as the couple of prayers, praying against astral projecting agents, etc. And by the way, one of the prayers in here goes into detail about praying against any agents of the devil trying to locate you in your dreams. And so I highly recommend this book for anyone who is going through warfare. Besides the Bible, obviously the Bible is going to be the foundation of your faith for this entire journey of getting out of that. But this is a great book to couple prayers of warfare with your breakthrough. Here's what I learned as a result. These are kind of like just some takeaway points, okay? Number one, always pray for discernment. And I mentioned here the monthly Covered by God fast that happens the first 3 days of every month. You can find it on YouTube. But I also wanted to include here the Year of the Bride fast. Now this one goes a bit longer, but it's actually really great. So